Ireland, 35 points to nil, winners over Russia in Pool A at the Rugby World Cup. It's kind of a weird result. It's not often that you look at a team who scored nil and think they actually did pretty well. Russia, I feel like most of us expected them to get a wee bit more blown away, but they proved to be a decent 80-minute team. Despite a couple of yellow cards, they actually kept the score at a very respectable level and can definitely hold their heads high. For the Irish team, with all the changes and whatnot, solid bonus point win for them in difficult conditions, but not a whole lot more. So enough without being kind of all that flash. It did start flash. Rob Kearney, who has been one of the better players for Ireland so far in the tournament, got us underway with another try. It was kind of from a line-up move. He put on a good fend, and it was 7-0 within a minute, 2 minutes. So absolute perfect start for Ireland. It set the tone well, and that they were there meaning business. Then it kind of got a bit back and forth. Russia actually got some ball. They were doing a wee bit of attacking of their own, but they weren't able to break the Irish defence down. Back and forth until around about 13 minutes, and then Sexton puts in a little grubber kick, and O'Mahony is the fastest guy to get to the ball. He showed a good bit of anticipation, good bit of teamwork, and he got it down. The Russian guy, I think it was Golonitsky, ended up whacking himself against the post, and he ended up having to go off, which is unfortunate. But 14-0 for Ireland after about as many minutes, and it looks like probably on course for a point a minute stuff, but it doesn't continue that way. 20 minutes, Ireland go 15 phases. They get really close, they get a penalty, they maul it, and then the Russians get a turnover. And the Russians getting a turnover, or the Russians benefiting from a Irish knock-on, was kind of the theme of this game. I'll get to the stats at the end. There were quite a few knock-ons, but yeah, it was just a thing. Murphy went off. Jordy Murphy went off after 26 minutes. Looked like he got a rib injury, which is pretty unfortunate for him as well. So hopefully it's nothing too serious, but rib injuries can be pretty nasty. So we'll see how that goes in the news. At one point, the Russian halfback, so scrum half, he seemed to knock down an Irish pass, like a pretty deliberate slap down, and the ref didn't have a word with him for any kind of cynical play. I thought that was a bit of a weird one. I know it's a match where it's a minnow up against the major team, but still, I would have thought standard fare is at least to give him a warning, but there was nothing, unless I kind of misread that one at the time, but that's what it seemed to be for me anyway. 32 minutes, though. Conway looks to have scored a try, but there's a forward pass in the lead-up. One of the Russian guys does get yellow carded at that point for the kind of constant infringing. 34 minutes, or 35. Eventually, the forwards for Ireland, they go through some phases and they finally get over the line. It's Ruddock, who kind of deserves it because he played really well, both with the ball and defensively. He gets the try. So it's 21-0 and 7-0 during the yellow card. So during yellow card period, 7 points is kind of what you want to get. They probably could have looked to get more, but 7 was enough, I suppose, in this situation. 37 minutes, the Russians attempt a drop goal, and it misses, but that's kind of the last big action of the half. And it goes in, it's a halftime, 21-0. Run meters at that point, 225 to Russia's 64. So Russia not doing a whole lot with ball in hand, often kicking the ball back. Possession was 67% Ireland. Territory was 73% Ireland, so really on top. But if you look at the tackling stats, penalties were 3 to Ireland, 8 to Russia. So Russia were probably fortunate to only get that yellow card towards the end of the first half. But tackling percentage, Ireland, who are known for their defence, 88%. Russia, 93%. So that speaks to both them putting their bodies on the line to hold the Irish guys out, but also perhaps, I mean, they had already conceded 3 tries, but still maybe a lack of innovation in the Irish attack, and that the Russian guys were able to read it and for large parts to maintain it, like the defensive line. So second half, Sexton doesn't come back on. He goes off at halftime, so Cardi comes on for him. The Irish attack goes 10 phases early. They get turned over. The Russians, what have I written? Kick. Oh, the Russians do a kick and Aki just drops it cold. Too much of that from Ireland. It was like they turned it over, they kicked it long, and Aki just no pressure. Nobody was around him, just dropped it cold. They did mention the ball was really, really slippery, so that's going to be a factor, but in a bigger game that may be costly. 46 minutes, the Russians win a scrum penalty, which I thought was pretty impressive. 50 minutes, there's a high shot for one of the Russian guys. It's unfortunate because the Irish guys kind of fall into the ground, but that's just the way the rules work now. And second yellow card. 57 minutes, the Russians miss a penalty. It was a hard shot, but a good chance for them to get on the board. Couldn't quite take it. If nothing else, that ate up a bit of the clock for the yellow card, and indeed, they managed to kill that yellow card down pretty well. 62 minutes, Conway gets his try. There's a chip over from Cardi. I think Earls is the guy who gets it first. He gets the ball to Conway, and Conway just puts down the hammer and goes in for the try. So bonus point try secured after the hour, 28-0. 68 minutes, Stander gets a big run on, which is kind of what we've been waiting to see from him. He's bursting through players, putting on fins. It was top stuff. The Irish desperately try to score the try, and the Russians desperately defend. It's the Russians who end up causing a Irish knock-on. But eventually, 76 minutes, Ringrose does get a try. There's like 3 or 4 passes in the build-up. It is slick stuff that we kind of wish there'd been more of in the earlier periods of the game, but maybe this was just a little bit of space opening up as the guys got tired towards the end. And that makes it 35-0. There's almost another Ringrose try right on 78 minutes, but the TMO rules, there was a knock-on in the build-up. So, yeah, 35-0. Maybe a moral victory to the Russians, but the Irish did enough. And I saw the post-match with Johnny Sexton just now, and he basically said, look, we came for a bonus point, we got that. The conditions were really tough. Maybe people don't understand that. Job done. Move on. So we'll see how they go. He also said I'd need to improve. I think most people would probably agree with that, but all teams are still looking to refine things as they head into the knockout stages. Final stats, run meters 566 to 154. Very dominant for Ireland. Position 63, territory 68. Again, pretty dominant. Tackling percentage, interestingly, the Russians didn't drop off in the second half. So both teams were at 88%. Ireland made 84, Russia made 161. So kudos to them for maintaining their performance levels throughout the whole game. Penalties conceded were 6-10. Knock-ons, 15 by Ireland. So that's pretty high. Fiji in their game against Georgia were similar conditions and they were offloading like mad. 18 knock-ons. So for Ireland to have 15 is a wee bit of a concern. Maybe a wee bit more practice with putting the grease on the ball or something, or the baby lotion or whatever Warren Gatlin's guys were doing. So, yeah. 9 to the Russians also speaks to the bad handling conditions, given that they only had 37% possession. They still managed to knock on that many times. In terms of individuals, Conway, 101 run meters. Ringrose 74, both had 2 defenders beaten. Gadzev for Russia, 20 out of 22 tackles, massive effort from him, defensive effort. Rhys Ruddock, proper effort from him, 14 out of 14 tackles. The next best Irishman was O'Mahony with 8. So Ruddock really on fire, so had a good game from him. But yeah, bit of a weird game in terms of the overall feeling. It wasn't a classic by any means. It was a wee bit scrappy. The conditions weren't ideal. The crowd support looked pretty darn good though. But yeah, it is 1:30, so I'm going to go off to bed. You guys let me know your thoughts on the game, and yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.